The suspect in the deadly Atlanta area shooting spree telling police he was motivated by a sex addiction. 21-year-old Robert Long charged with killing 8 people in 3 separate massage parlors last night, 6 of them Asian women. Long telling police, though, that race was not a factor.
He claims that these, and as the chief said, this is still early, but he does claim that it was not racially motivated. He apparently has an issue, what he considers a sex addiction, and sees these locations as something that allows him to go to these places, and it's a temptation for him that he wanted to eliminate.
Authorities saying it's too early to call this a hate crime, but it is sending shockwaves for the Asian American community nonetheless as they deal with a spike in violence since the start of the pandemic. Here with me now, Dr. Russell Jung, professor of Asian American Studies at San Francisco State University, also co-founder of the nonprofit Stop AAPI Hate, and also NBC News investigations correspondent Tom Winter. Dr. Jung, let me start with you. Authorities are saying it is too early to tell if the Atlanta area shootings are a hate crime. The suspect here saying this was about eliminating temptation, not race. I just want to get your reaction to that.
True. Whatever the motivation of the perpetrator, I know that the Asian American community is alarmed when 6 out of the 8 of the victims are Asian American, and our thoughts and concerns are really go to the families of the victims. Again, whether or not the issue is race motivated or biased, we know that we've been targets of racism over the last year with political rhetoric fueled by the president. And we know that at least a third of our incidents reported to our reporting center have clear signals where people say, go back to China. It's because of you. We have the coronavirus. That people are targeting us for racism, for being outsiders. And so in that context, this heinous act is still alarming and outrageous.
Yeah, absolutely. Tom, the suspect here, Long, appears to be cooperative. We know both he and his parents are at the very least answering police questions. What else can you tell us about the investigation at this stage?
Well, I think it's important to remember that in investigations like this, you go where the evidence leads you. You go with the best evidence you have at the time. And oftentimes, some of the best evidence you develop are the things that the actual person responsible for it says to you if they actually decide to talk. And in this case, that appears to be what's going on at this point. So it is possible, as we learn more over the coming days, as they search electronic devices, as they speak with witnesses, perhaps survivors of this awful shooting spree, that they may uncover other information that may lead them closer or towards perhaps an Asian bias or an Asian hate crime angle or component to this shooting incident. They may also find more information that leads them away from it. At this point, as you suggested, it appears that this person was acting out of some sort of a sexual addiction, in some sort of a mindset that if he shot these people, he would end any potential temptation. Now, you might wonder, and we've asked, well, okay, then why didn't he shoot up, say, a strip club in downtown Atlanta or a sex shop? And I think, you know, and why did he go after 6 of the 8 victims being Asian in this case? When we've looked at that, Allison, and when we've spoken with law enforcement and based on statements that they've said, is that there's some indication that he may have actually frequented these establishments, and that's why they were targeted. But obviously, more investigative avenues, need to be gone down here by police and law enforcement.
Yeah, still plenty of questions on this one. Tom, Long is scheduled for arraignment tomorrow. What charges is he facing?
So he's facing 4 counts of murder as well as 1 count of aggravated assault. That's just in one particular county, Allison. So we expect other counties to add on additional charges in this case. One area where we don't think we'll see any charges is with the gun. It's a 9mm handgun. He only had 1 of them. Apparently, he purchased it yesterday, obviously in advance of this shooting, and it was purchased legally, according to multiple law enforcement officials.
Dr. Jung, your group Stop AAPI Hate has been tracking the rise of hate incidents against Asian Americans over the past year during the pandemic, and the numbers are startling. We know of at least nearly 3,800 reported attacks between the start of the pandemic and February. Undoubtedly, there may be so many more that we don't know about that have not been reported. Could you tell us more about what you found and how we can help stop this?
Sure. So these hate incidents are alarming, just this number, but we know that this is just a fraction of what's happening across the country. We have over 50 reports stating, we have all 50 states reporting. And one of the alarming trends that we've seen that have been consistent is that women are attacked 2.3 times more than men, and that Asian girls are attacked 2.3 times more than boys. So the fact that this recent shooting targeted Asian women shows that Asians are susceptible and women are vulnerable to these types of crimes and this type of violence. And Asian women then are doubly susceptible. It's tragic. And what we need to do is have a whole government approach to get at the roots of racism. And we need government now to really come to support the families of the victims, to provide racial trauma services to the broader community, because we are really alarmed. We are really outraged, and we need to hold government accountable for these types of mass shootings.
Tom, we know that cities like New York are ramping up their law enforcement presence as a precaution because of incidents like this. What else can you tell us about what cities like New York are doing?
Right. So this was partly guided by something that actually started happening a year ago. And Allison, you and I spoke about it back then. It's something that our colleague Vicki Wen has spoken about exclusively and often here on NBC News Now. And that is Asian hate crimes in New York City. In a rise in that, the NYPD has tried to respond with a specific Asian hate crimes task force, marrying detectives who are skilled in investigations, have language skills in the Asian community, ties to those communities, to try to investigate it. So last night was a natural extension. Anytime there's a mass shooting or some sort of a terrorist attack overseas or domestically, the NYPD looks at that information. They get information real time from their law enforcement partners, either around the world or here in the United States through their Operation Sentry program. They look at it, they analyze it, and they say, you know what, we don't need to find out what this person's motives are. We don't need the specifics of the investigation. What we do know is that there's a significant amount of Asian people that have been targeted here. We have this CRC, Critical Response Command, at our fingertips, and we can assign them anywhere in New York City, in multiple places in New York City, heavily trained, heavily armed units to really have a sense of force and protection around whatever community may have been impacted elsewhere. That's what the NYPD tried to do last night. That's something that I think I would suspect that we will see more from them if these types of incidents keep occurring. And hopefully, Allison, that's not the case.
Yeah, hopefully not, indeed. Tom, Dr. Jung, thank you both so much for being with us.
Thanks, Allison.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.